Hello and welcome to this solar eclipse video. This solar eclipse video for the eclipse of the 20th of March 2015 solar eclipse in Pisces and the nakshatra or lunar mansion of Uttara Bhadrapada. And this particular solar eclipse brings a very big potential for closing one chapter of your life and really starting a profound new chapter of your life. First, through the process of integration of some of the experiences that you've recently been through and also experiences that you've been through over the course of the last several years. We're going to take a very detailed look at this particular eclipse and also the events that lead up to that eclipse on an astrological level. So I hope you have a few minutes. You might want to run, get a drink, make yourself a sandwich, whatever it is that you want to do. But hey, as they say in quote unquote TV land, don't touch that dial, because there's some very good information here for you. And I hope that you'll kind of sit through it all, because it really helps to explain the process on a very detailed level. So we're not only going to cover the solar eclipse, we're going to cover what's going on with Neptune this week, leading up to the eclipse, and also what's going on with Mercury this week, and why this particular eclipse is so exceptionally powerful. Let's start there. Now, for the last several years, there's been an ongoing series of intense astrological alignments between Pluto and Uranus. Pluto, what's Pluto's purpose? Well, Pluto will take us to some very deep, dark places, perhaps areas that we don't want to explore. He'll take us through our vulnerabilities so that we're able to reclaim our power. On the global scale, what's been going on with Pluto? Well, dark secrets that perhaps a lot of people didn't want to come to the surface have suddenly been coming to the surface, and there's been a very profound shift for humanity on many levels in association with those events. Uranus, what does Uranus associate with? Well, information on one level, the collective on another, and also all that is radical and revolutionary. So revolutionary changes for humanity involving things that have risen to the surface over the course of the last several years. And why is it rising to the surface? Well, so it can be brought to attention, so that it can be healed, so that we can grow, so that we can transform, so that we can evolve as a species. And on the personal level, why have these particular experiences been happening for you? Well, for the very same reason, so that you can grow, and so that you can change. Now, this solar eclipse will happen 3 days after the last exactitude between Pluto and Uranus for the next 60 years. Over the course of the last several years, there have been several exactitudes between these two planets, and we're not going to deal with another exactitude for another 60 years. So if you've been having a difficult time with these changes, you can bid it a fond farewell. But it's going to bring a lot of powerful growth for you in many different areas of your life. And earlier on this month, we had Venus first conjuncting Uranus and then squaring Pluto, so crossing the plane of that alignment. Around the 11th, we had Mars doing the same. So Venus was bringing refinement to whatever those aspects were doing for you. And then Mars brought another level of growth that needed to be pushed through, and it probably felt like a lot of very high pressure energy for you individually. And that's just so the changes can really be pushed through in a very cathartic manner. Mars has a tendency to do that. And so Mars was conjuncting Uranus and also squaring Pluto at that time. And now in the days leading up to the eclipse, we'll have a exactitude between Pluto and Uranus. We'll have a conjunction between Mercury and Neptune. Neptune is actually going to change nakshatras or lunar mansions, and this doesn't happen very often because Neptune's a very slow-moving planet. And in addition to that, right after we have the solar eclipse, then both the moon and the sun will shift into Aries, which is ruled by Mars, and Mars will have made a shift into a new lunar mansion itself. So a new spark coming on the tail end of something that is closing, a closing chapter of your life. And we're going to look at this in a very detailed manner, not just the solar eclipse, but also some of the movements of Neptune, the Mercury-Neptune alignment, and how all of this ties in to the particular astrological climate that we're going to be experiencing over the course of the next several days. And in order to do this, I'm now going to take you into my astrological about the astrological alignments that are leading up to this particular solar eclipse. Let's talk about what a solar eclipse is in general. A solar eclipse will always happen on a new moon, and it happens when the sun and the moon are in close proximity to what are called the nodes. Now, the nodes are not actual planets, but they are the points that actually create eclipses, and they are responsible for karmic rectification. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is taking the old karma, or our old way of relating to the universe with which we have become most secure, and actually advancing our evolution beyond that previous way of relating to the universe. That's what I mean when I say karmic rectification. So a solar eclipse is a new moon in close proximity to the nodes. And this particular solar eclipse is going to be visible across most of Europe. And wherever the eclipse is casting its shadow on the planet, those particular countries tend to come more into prominence in terms of world events and transformations that take place. And this is going to be visible across most of Europe. So European nations can look for a lot of change and a lot of shift over the course of the next 6 months. Individually, we can all look for a lot of changes and a lot of shifts within our lives based upon this particular eclipse. Now let's take a look at the particular alignments that are leading up to this eclipse, so that once we are actually discussing the eclipse, we can understand the process, which has probably been going on for several years, which is coming to a culmination. Okay, let's start by examining Neptune. Neptune this week, in the days leading up to the solar eclipse, is going to make a shift into a different nakshatra, or lunar mansion. The nakshatras are basically like subsections of the signs, and they can be understood as such. They help to further define the energy of the planets through the particular signs. Neptune most recently has been in the nakshatra of Shatabisha. And we're going to talk about Shatabisha, and I think we can understand what's been going on globally on a very deep level by taking a look at this. Now, it's easy to understand the nakshatras, or the lunar mansions, through understanding the particular deities or mythological entities that are associated with the lunar mansion itself. And Shatabisha is governed over by Varuna. Varuna is also the god of the oceans, much like Neptune, and Varuna is very similar to Neptune. What Varuna will do is first cloud over and then reveal. If you take the concept of a healing crisis, where we kind of get stuck in an illusion or stuck in a loop, but we kind of needed to go through that process so that we could go through a deeper level of growth, transformation, and evolution, then you have a very good understanding of what Shatabisha is all about. But there are also some other mythological beings who are associated with this particular nakshatra, or lunar mansion. And these are the Manus, the Dakshas, and the Valmikis. Now let's understand the Manus first and what they are all about in order to really understand what Shatabisha is about. The Manus are responsible for physical growth of everybody on the planet, social organization, and also geological changes. It's that last bit that's really interesting. The Manus are associated with geological changes on the highest level. Then there are the Dakshas, who are responsible for the same, but more on the lower planes of existence, within the individuals themselves, and also on the gross material level of creating, well, perhaps the darkness or ignorance that the individual has to go through in order to come out the other side more whole and more enlightened about where they have previously been ignorant. Then there are the Valmikis, who impart spiritual knowledge that brings about the purification that's associated with this particular nakshatra. Now, we can notice that over the course of the last several years, there's been a lot coming to the surface about the changes that the planet is going through, the changes that we as a species inhabiting the planet are going through in relation to our particular connection to Mother Earth. Our connection to Mother Earth is our connection to the planet. Our connection to the planet will relate to our connection to our solar system, then to our galaxy, and then to our universe, which is nothing really, well, I shouldn't say it's nothing really but it's a great model for the nature of human existence, our relationship to our soul, our relationship to God, spirit, whatever it is you want to call it, is all mirrored in this relationship between the individual, the planet, the solar system, and the universe as a whole. Now, something about that particular relationship for you as an individual and for humanity in general is getting ready to undergo a very profound transformation. Now, Neptune is shifting out of Shatabisha, and it's actually going to move into the nakshatra of Purva Bhadrapada. And happening in coordination with that is a Mercury-Neptune conjunction. Mercury serves as the messenger. So bringing a message to you as an individual, bringing a message to humanity in general, based upon this shift from Neptune into Purva Bhadrapada. Let's talk about Purva Bhadrapada for a while. Now, Purva Bhadrapada is represented by Aja Ekapada, which means the one-footed goat. It's a one-footed goat god. And what is the responsibility for this particular deity? Well, this particular deity is the unborn, transcendent, cosmic energy. What its responsibility is to take the abstract, to take the unknown, and to give it form, make it concrete. So where there have been lessons in your life based upon Neptune's transition through Shatabisha, they now have an opportunity to become more concrete. You have an opportunity to integrate the changes that are associated with them on a very deep and a very profound level. Pardon me. And this coordinates with a Mercury-Neptune conjunction, eclipse is actually coming on the tail end of this Neptune-Mercury conjunction, and also the final tense alignment that we were speaking about between Pluto and Uranus. And the solar eclipse will be happening in a section of the sky that's called Uttara Bhadrapada. Now let's talk about Uttara Bhadrapada. Uttara Bhadrapada is associated with an entity that's called Ahir Budnya, which is the serpent of the depths. So basically, Uttara Bhadrapada is associated with the mysterious, the things that we can't explain. And what the purpose for Uttara Bhadrapada is, and Ahir Budnya in general, is to take those particular concrete experiences that we've had as individuals and to bring transcendence based upon the growth that we've come through or gone through in relation to those particular concrete events that were brought about through Purva Bhadrapada. Additionally, with Uttara Bhadrapada, it's about that which we don't have an explanation for. Those things that we can't rationalize, those things that we can't integrate, and therefore we just have to surrender and hope that we will have an understanding on a deeper level by surrendering to the experience that we're going through. So Uttara Bhadrapada will ultimately relate to a process of evolution or letting go, closing one chapter of your life. And now we lead up to the beginning of a new chapter. After we have this particular solar eclipse, the moon will first shift into Aries, and then later on in the day will be joined by the sun. And Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars will have shifted into a different section of Aries, which is known as Ashwini. And this is all very important to the process. So there's new initiative that comes on the tail end of release. This suggests a very profound process of integration of the experiences that you've been going through over the course of the last several years, and also most recently over the course of the last several months. Collectively, it's about the evolution that we've been going through on the planet, closing one chapter of our existence here on the planet, and an opportunity to start a new chapter for those who are aware enough to undergo the change, to make use of the transformative power of the astrological alignments that are there. So on the tail end of the solar eclipse, then we have the moon moving into Aries and the sun moving into Aries, where they're joined by Mars. And Mars is in Ashwini. And Ashwini is responsible for rejuvenation, for healing, for taking the old process and bringing a different experience about based upon the old and based upon how one has made use of the particular information that was made available to them. So make very good use of this particular aspect. Solar eclipses are not the best time to start new projects. They're very good times for reflection, understanding. What happens with the solar eclipse is you've got the moon passing between the earth and the sun. And there's a very profound set of symbolism that's associated with that particular event, because the sun represents the soul. The moon represents our ability to reflect the input of the soul and make it concrete here on Earth within our material existence. And a solar eclipse will cast the shadow of the moon upon the Earth. So there can be the tendency to get caught up in emotional processes, to not really be able to be receptive to that particular energy, but that ultimately serves a purpose, just as we were talking about the energy of Shatabisha earlier on. That serves a purpose too. It seems like a delusionary process and an illusionary process, but ultimately it serves your evolution. So if you make use of this time to really meditate, to really tune into the sensations that you might be experiencing with this, and to understand as deeply as you can what's been going on the last several years, especially since about 2008, then you're going to be able to really make good use of this particular alignment, and also especially in regards to the beginning of this month, talking about a microcosmic experience for you as an individual based upon what's been going on the last several years, just as chapters sometimes have subsections. So a big subsection has been going on for you probably the last several weeks, but the big changes have been going on over the course of the last several years. And through reflecting during this particular eclipse energy, then you can make the best use of the potential within this particular alignment. And I should note for you that basically solar eclipses have a very profound and far-reaching effect. So you may not notice the changes associated with the eclipse immediately, but over the course of the next 6 months, between now and the next set of eclipses, then you will likely find some very concrete, deep changes in your life going on in relation to the work that you have done at this particular eclipse cycle. If you'd like to know where in your life the eclipse will be having its most profound effects, then you might want to consider one of my vast range of astrological services. There's a link on this screen. If it's still open, you can click on that. If not, further down in the description area of the page, there's also a link. I offer person-to-person consultations where you can interact with me personally using the very same software I use to record this video. There are also personalized video reports, which is me recording a monologue. So there is no personal interaction, but it's just a monologue based upon whatever you're looking for information on. And there are also written reports for those of you who prefer the written word. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube page yet, please consider doing so. You'll receive an update every time there's a new video released. And for all of you out there going through very big changes in your life, I hope you're able to make great use of this particular celestial opportunity. And until next time, please do take the very best care of yourself.